Every time Kiss's Gene Simmons opens his mouth, chaos could erupt at any minute, and over the years, this has damaged the lives and reputations of fellow rock musicians, his bandmates, and even innocent bystanders. Today, we're looking at the many victims of Gene Simmons, starting off with Ronnie James Dio, whose death was exploited by Simmons in the most despicable way. Known for his time in Black Sabbath and credited for introducing the now universal devil horns gesture to rock music, Dio was universally beloved by fans. However, he and Simmons were engaged in a long-standing dispute over who truly pioneered the horns. While Simmons claims that he came up with the gesture during Kiss's Hotter Than Hell tour in 1974, Dio credits the origin of the horns to his grandmother, who introduced the symbol to him in his youth.
My grandmother and my grandfather on both sides of both my mother's and father's side came to America from Italy, and they had superstitions. And I would always see my grandmother when I was a little kid, you know, with her holding my hand and walking down the street. She would see someone and go, "What's that?" And eventually learned that it was called the Maloik. And the Maloik was, someone was giving us the evil eye, so she's giving it protection against the evil eye. Because I'm lucky enough to have kind of just have done it so much, it's been more equated with me than anyone else. Although Gene Simmons will tell you that he invented it, but then again, Gene invented breathing and shoes and everything, you know.
Following Dio's death in 2010, Simmons seized his moment to finally claim ownership of the devil horns once and for all, submitting an application to the US Patent and Trademark Office seeking exclusive rights to the gesture within the entertainment sector. The rock and metal community were instantly sent into a frenzy, as the possibility of having to pay Simmons a royalty anytime a musician flashed the horns became a very real possibility. Facing mounting public pressure, Simmons would eventually withdraw his application, though he showed absolutely no remorse, boldly declaring, "I regret nothing." People said, "You can't do that." Actually, I can do anything I want to do. However, Dio is far from the only rock legend that Simmons was at odds with. In 2011, he would publicly call out Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose, bashing him for wasting his band's potential.
Guns N' Roses could have been the biggest band in the world, and the reason they're not is because of Axl Rose.
At the time, Guns N' Roses was fading into obscurity following the disbandment of the group's original lineup, largely due to Axl's difficult and controlling personality. Simmons would put Rose on blast during an interview with musicnews.com, saying that rock and roll was a marathon, not a sprint, and that Rose couldn't cut it in the industry. He would even offer Axl a piece of scornful advice.
What could he have done to change that path?
A good beating would have helped.
And while Rose never retaliated against the Kiss bassist's remarks, guitar icon Carlos Santana would be the one to bring the fight to Simmons. In an interview with ContactMusic.com, Santana would dismiss the Kiss co-founder as a talentless hack that hides behind his makeup. Gene's not a musician, he's an entertainer. Kiss is Las Vegas entertainment, so he wouldn't know what music is anyway. That's why he wears all that stuff. A musician doesn't need the mask and the mascara. Simmons would fire back while promoting an upcoming Kiss tour, quipping, "It's time for us to go out and show the little boys how the big boys do it. I'm sick and tired of these bands like Carlos Santana looking at his shoes and thinking that's a rock concert." Yet Santana is not the first guitarist that Simmons has had issues with. Just ask former Kiss guitarist Ace Frehley. Although Frehley maintains that he quit the band due to creative differences, Simmons contends that Ace was fired for substance abuse, alcoholism, and general unprofessionalism. From that moment, the two were locked in a relentless war of words, seizing every opportunity to disparage one another during interviews. Simmons went so far as to label Frehley a cancer, to which Frehley countered by describing Simmons as a caricature of his former self, devoid of both friends and respect. Yet the impossible happened in 2017 when Simmons and Frehley put their differences aside to support the victims of Hurricane Harvey, reuniting on stage for the first time in over 16 years at the Children Matter benefit concert. The event turned out to be a tremendous success, leading to widespread speculation regarding Frehley's potential full-time return to Kiss. Kiss. However, Simmons would promptly dispel the rumors, making it abundantly clear that Frehley would never be welcomed back into the band.
Well, you know that's not going to happen. Ace has been in and out of the band 3 different times. That's enough.
Frehley would eventually respond to Simmons' ongoing slander through his official Facebook page, leveling several startling accusations against Simmons. He wrote, "You're just an and a sex addict who's being sued by multiple women, and you're just trying to sweep it all under the carpet. You groped my wife and propositioned her in Los Angeles at the Capitol Records building behind my back. She was planning on pursuing a lawsuit against you, but I told her to call it off." Frehley ended his statement by ordering Simmons to apologize to him, as well as demanding he be reinstated as Kiss's lead guitarist, neither of which, unsurprisingly, came to fruition. And while Ace Frehley now enjoys a successful career as a solo artist, the same cannot be said for the guitarist who replaced him, Vinnie Vincent, whose life was absolutely ruined after his tenure in Kiss. Now, from the very moment Vincent was hired by the band in 1982, it was apparent that his personality did not mesh well with Gene's, to the point that he was quickly fired from Kiss after playing just a few concerts with the group. However, Kiss had already scheduled studio time to record their forthcoming 1982 album, Creatures of the Night, and were unable to find a new lead guitarist on such short notice, meaning that Vincent was reluctantly brought back into the fold. Subsequently, tensions escalated in the studio as Simmons butted heads with Vincent. Simmons would tell Guitar World, "Vinnie wanted to make every solo this massive thing. Everything that Vinnie did sounded like it was on crack. It was ridiculous, and it certainly wasn't Kiss. It got to the point where we had to put our foot down." As Vincent's tenure in the band continued, frequent disputes arose regarding his position in the band as well as his salary, to the point where Vincent was once again fired from Kiss, marking the second time in 2 years the band had let him go. Vincent would spend the next few years at war with Kiss, filing multiple lawsuits against his former bandmates alleging unpaid songwriting royalties. According to Gene Simmons, Vincent filed a total of 14 lawsuits against him, with Vinnie losing every last one. This led to Vincent having to file for bankruptcy as well as sell his Kiss songwriting copyrights so that he could pay for legal damages. Vinnie Vincent would then disappear from the public eye for the next 20 years. That is, until he re-emerged at the Atlanta Kiss Expo in January of 2018, after which he was invited by Simmons to make a special appearance alongside him at one of Simmons' solo events in Nashville, Tennessee. Yet just as it seemed like Vinnie Vincent was poised for a big comeback, he made the ill-advised decision to trademark the name Vinnie Vincent's Kiss. Angered at the fact that Vincent was trying to make money off the Kiss name, Simmons then threatened him with another lawsuit, bringing the rekindled friendship between the two musicians to a bitter end. Simmons would later elaborate on his feelings towards Vincent, stating, "There are people who simply cannot handle when things are starting to go their way, so they torpedo it by making stupid decisions to make sure they don't succeed."
And Vinnie's a great guy, and maybe, in my view, his own worst enemy.
Vincent was predictably not included alongside the original Kiss lineup when the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an organization that Simmons has had very public issues with over the years. The Kiss co-founder would repeatedly speak out about his frustration with rap and hip-hop artists being inducted into the Rock Hall, arguing that the likes of Run DMC and Grandmaster Flash do not belong in the institution. Ahead of rap group NWA's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2016, Simmons would again disparage the genre. He told Rolling Stone, "I am looking forward to the death of rap. I'm looking forward to music coming back to lyrics and melody instead of just talking. Those are novelty records. I don't have the cultural background to appreciate being a gangster." NWA would then defiantly respond to Simmons during their acceptance speech.
And I want to say to Mr. Gene Simmons, hip-hop is here forever. Get used to it. Get used to it.
Leave that.
Peace.
We supposed to be here.
Now, despite Simmons foreseeing an impending death for rap music, the genre only grew in commercial popularity over the following decade. Simmons would similarly claim on multiple occasions that rock and roll was dead, blaming fans for murdering the genre by illegally downloading music. Unsurprisingly, a number of rock and metal musicians took huge issue with the Kiss bassist's stance, like Twisted Sister's Dee Snider.
But I wish he just shut the hell up with this. And he doubles down on it. He doubles down. And it's just, this statement of rock's dead, there are no rock stars, don't bother people, all that shit. It's just so self-serving and self-absorbed and just, and selfish. It's like, because it's not doing it my way, it doesn't have value. You know what I mean? So it's not the way it was when I was coming up. So it's not rock and roll anymore.
However, saying that rock is dead is far from the most inflammatory statement Simmons has ever made. In 2014, the Kiss co-founder faced tremendous backlash when he encouraged those with depression to themselves. He told Songfacts.com, "I always call them on their bluff. I'm the guy who says jump when there's a guy on top of a building. Are you kidding? Why are you announcing it? Shut the up, have some dignity and jump. You've got the crowd." The timing of Simmons' comments was highly insensitive, coming just days after the heartbreaking of the beloved Robin Williams. The subsequent outcry against Simmons even led to multiple radio stations boycotting all Kiss songs in protest. Gene would ultimately have to issue a public apology, much like he did only 2 years later after he called musical icon Prince's death pathetic. In an interview with Newsweek, Simmons asserted that Prince's death via accidental drug overdose was, quote, a choice, adding, "He himself. Slowly, I'll grant you, but that's what drugs and alcohol is, a slow death." Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue, a recovering addict himself, took significant offense to these comments and promptly criticized Simmons on Twitter, expressing his disapproval. Gene's recent heartless and uneducated remarks about Prince's death shows why he's not my hero anymore or anybody's. Sixx would go on to state, "We have no respect for Gene Simmons anymore. Nobody in rock does. And I'm not gonna sit back quietly and allow a bully to go out there and put down people he doesn't know anything about. I think Gene should call it a day. And if you want to compare Prince to Kiss, I mean, okay, come on, there's no comparison." Dave Mustaine, former guitarist for Metallica and founder of Megadeth, was also subjected to an extremely insensitive remark by Gene Simmons that inappropriately mocked the passing of Mustaine's former bandmate.
And Kiss were right next to us. And I said, "Yeah, Gene, how about a Kiss reunion?" And he goes, "How about a Metallica reunion?" And I went, because Cliff had died, and I thought it was just not good form.
As you can probably tell, many of Gene's controversies arise from his tendency of speaking impulsively, which is exactly what sparked his feud with Van Halen frontman David Lee Roth. It all started in 2019 when Roth was invited to open for Kiss as a solo artist, only for him to be mysteriously kicked off the tour after just a few shows. When questioned about Roth's sudden exit, Simmons revealed that Roth was taken off the tour due to his lackluster performances, stating, "During Dave's heyday, nobody did what he did. He was the ultimate frontman. And then, I don't know what happened to him. Something. And you get modern day Dave. I prefer to remember Elvis Presley in his prime. I don't want to think of bloated naked Elvis on the bathroom floor." Further adding insult to injury, the vacant opening slot was filled by the performance painter Garibaldi, insinuating that fans were better off literally watching paint dry rather than witnessing a David Lee Roth show. Roth would eventually respond to the insults, taking to his Instagram page with 18 back-to-back posts of an image of a boy with his middle finger up. The post was captioned, "Roth to Simmons." This was enough to prompt Simmons to publicly ask Roth for his forgiveness, but the damage was already done. Perhaps as a result, Roth then chose to retire from performing, with his unsuccessful shows opening for Kiss marking his final appearances on stage. Maybe Simmons should have realized the importance of thinking before speaking, especially after his nasty, highly publicized feud with Sharon Osbourne, which Simmons Simmons sparked when he openly took shots at her children during their struggles with drug abuse and their subsequent entry into rehab. In response to Gene's cruel remarks, Osbourne would issue a scathing warning while speaking with Blender magazine. Simmons said that our kids are on drugs and that his aren't messed up like that. He will always be C-list, and his wife's has been rubbed on every pole in LA. I'll tear his head off and stick it up his wife's. Years later, Simmons found himself on Sharon Osbourne's TV show, The Talk. Fighting back angry tears, Sharon confronted Simmons about his comments, leading the Kiss bassist to acknowledge his mistake. He apologized to Osbourne, commending her for standing up for her family. Sharon ultimately granted Gene her forgiveness, unlike original Kiss drummer Peter Criss, who is still on bad terms with Simmons to this very day. The rift between Simmons and Criss became apparent in the late 1970s, during a turbulent period marked by severe internal strife within Kiss. As the group's grueling 1979 tour neared its conclusion, Criss would manifest his displeasure with his bandmates by deliberately sabotaging Kiss's live shows. Criss, by his own admission, deliberately played his drums out of beat with the rest of the band, and would sometimes even abruptly stop playing entirely in the middle of songs, all in front of paying fans. An enraged Simmons would then vote to kick Criss out of the band immediately, but the group would somehow hold it together in hopes of finishing the tour. Yet only 48 hours later, Criss decided to express his hatred for Simmons by hurling drumsticks at his head during the finale of that evening's performance. A backstage scuffle would subsequently erupt, wherein Simmons battered Criss as the drummer responded by attacking Simmons with a broken champagne bottle before the band's crew broke up the fight. Unsurprisingly, Peter Criss was fired from Kiss soon after, with Simmons publicly badmouthing the drummer ever since. Following Criss's departure from the band, the 1980s would see Kiss decline into their least commercially successful era, a time in which Gene's fellow bandleader Paul Stanley would finally turn on his longtime friend, with one infamous confrontation between the two even being caught on video.
Would you stop cutting me down in front of a camera? I don't go for that shit.
Go on.
I don't know, all of a sudden, like whatever I say, all of a sudden, don't listen to this idiot. Don't do that anymore.
According to Paul Stanley, their relationship fell apart due to Simmons' diminished commitment to the band as Gene shifted his attention towards pursuing an acting career. In a 2014 interview with Mojo magazine, Stanley would recall, "There was a lot of anger and resentment at everybody's lack of focus, but ultimately, I felt a sense of betrayal by Gene. The other people I could understand, but Gene was the person I depended on for ethics and commitments, and as far as I was concerned, he betrayed me and the band." Yet despite their differences, the duo managed to reconcile and successfully led Kiss through decades of prosperity, culminating in the legendary band's retirement in 2023. Still, Stanley acknowledges that dealing with Gene has always been difficult, a fact that was apparent even from their first meeting in the early 70s. Looking back, Stanley recalls his first impression of Simmons as someone who was, quote, overbearing and very much enamored with himself. Some things never change.